Hello everyone, and welcome on board the Sunset Safari here in Nkuhuma Private Game Reserve. I hope you all noticed that tiny little pearl-spotted owlet sitting in the tree. We got very lucky to find it this afternoon. It was some go-away birds that were actually alarm calling at an African harrier hawk that caused us to look back and spot the silhouette of this little owl perched in a knobthorn tree. My name is Scott, and on camera this afternoon with me is Andrew. Brent has headed out on another vehicle, and he's teamed up with Brian this afternoon. They've headed off to follow up on the Nkuhuma pride, who are busy finishing off the remains of a buffalo kill that they made last night. So really exciting stuff happened. It was the first time that we managed to capture the Nkuhuma pride successfully hunting, and that's after being here for close on 8 months now. So it was a long time overdue, and glad we got to share it with some of you. For those of you who weren't there, sorry about that, but you got to keep tuned. It's a live safari, and if you want to be in on the action, you have to be with us when it's happening. Now, as I said, it is a live safari, so if you're watching for the first time, a very warm welcome. And just to let you know a little bit about what we do and how it works, as I said, there's Brent out on another vehicle, and we will chop and change between the two vehicles depending on what's going on and what action the various presenters will find. And also, we will answer your questions, so send them through to us, and your comments and thoughts to hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. Let's take a closer look at this little pearl-spotted owl. The sun has just popped out from behind some clouds, and it's partly overcast, probably 4 or 5/8 cloud cover this afternoon. So we can expect intermittent shady patches. And there's a little bit of a breeze, and you'll notice the branches of this knobthorn tree blowing gently in the wind. Despite it being the middle of winter, it's quite a warm afternoon. It's 23 degrees Celsius, which is about 74 degrees Fahrenheit. So very pleasant conditions, even though we are in the middle of our winter. Now watch closely. I know it is a little bit far away, but as it turns its head, and they can swivel them 180 degrees, it's got two false eyes on the back. So now it is facing us, but there we go. There you can see one of the false spots, and this is to give other animals the impression that it's always looking at them. So a useful marking to have eyes on the back of its head, and this will certainly aid in its defense against other predators that are larger than it. It in itself is a ferocious little predator, and I've actually seen one with a laughing dove kill before. That was in Zimbabwe, and a laughing dove is about the same size of this tiny little owlet. You'll also be interested to note that it doesn't appear to be asleep. It's wide awake, swiveling its head around from side to side, and it's not true that all owls will only operate at night time, and this is a perfect example. They will quite often hunt during the day, and the kill that I saw one make, well, I didn't actually see the physical takedown, but it was in the afternoon, perched up in a tree with its laughing dove kill. I'm tempted to try and get us a little bit closer to it. We've been sat with it for quite some time now, and let's take a gamble. Let's see if we can get you a closer look. They're such pretty birds. There is a chance it may fly off, but at least let's try and see what happens. Oh. No, we're not going to force it. It's already beginning to flutter through those leaves, so we'll just continue on rather than unnecessarily chasing it completely out of that tree, because if other birds spot it as it flies off, it's going to be attacked and mobbed by a series of little birds that will be wanting to give away its position. And it's kind of like a neighborhood watch system, you could say. Even animals that may not be predated on by that little owl will still let off an alarm call, because it's essentially the prey versus the predators out here. And we would hate to ruin its afternoon by alerting every little bird in this vicinity that it's around. Now, for those of you who were on the morning safari, you would have remembered seeing that large herd of buffalo on Arethusa, and I mentioned that it was going to be worth keeping an eye on the Arethusa waterhole as they were heading in that direction. And thanks very much for your updates that have been sent through, confirming that they did in fact reach there. And I'm glad that some of you got to see those buffalo taking a drink. It would be interesting to know how many you thought were there, because in the very thick vegetation that we saw them in, it would have been very difficult to count them. So the plan for us this afternoon on this vehicle is to basically scratch around for anything interesting. I was across on Arethusa this morning. I don't think I'll go back there this afternoon, but there were some elephant tracks heading down this road kind of towards Twin Dams. They look quite fresh, certainly from between game drives. I could see that they were from between the drives because I noticed that their footprints were on top of the vehicle tracks, which is a good clue that they have been here after us. And tracking animals is an important way for us to try and find them. If we were to drive around permanently without trying to actually track down the animals, we wouldn't have much luck. So it's very important for us to actively follow the footprints of animal in order to find them. Well, I'm very happy that we've got a question through from Ginny, because I didn't give you an idea of how big that owl was, and it can be a little bit difficult for you to get an idea of size. So it's probably only about that big. It's a tiny little creature. There's also another one out here called the barred owlet, which is also the same size. So very, very small. The smallest that we get in Africa, or in this part of Africa at least. And that's why they've been called owlets, for their miniature size. They've got a beautiful call that you quite often hear on our safaris. Is my impersonation. I'm sure it could be fine-tuned, but you've got the gist of it. And if you ever hear that now, you will know it is the little pearl-spotted owlet responsible for that call. Hard to confuse with anything else, however, sometimes they only let off brief portions of that call, and that's the case with a lot of bird calls. It may not always be the exact same noise, and there can be slight variations thereof, or remixes, you could say, that can be a little bit confusing. So I'm not sure where these elephants have gone. Their tracks veered off the road, but Andrew and myself are going to continue working this area. We're probably going to stop and listen a lot this afternoon, and that will hopefully get some intelligence from the animals as to where exactly they're hiding. Either we could hear the elephants trumpeting, or who knows, possibly we could hear impala alarm calling at a leopard nearby. Anyway, while we wait here and listen, we're going to send you across to Brent for an update on his afternoon so far.
Welcome on this live safari, everyone. My name's Brent. I'm going to be your guide on the Sunset Safari. I've got Brian on camera, and we are actually on our way back towards the scene of all that pandemonium last Sunset Safari. And this is actually the area where those lionesses were moving through and going off and careering off those two main ones that jumped on that buffalo actually came through this little thicket we're driving through now. Well, not really a thicket, the sparse little bush off to our left, and went round and chased those buffaloes out of the crest in that terminalia woodland there, down towards us. We can actually smell the carcass from where we are now. Basically, the main smell I'm smelling is the smell of undigested grass, and I can just see the carcass. So I don't see any lions feeding on it. It's quite possible that they're all very fat and very flat, but we'll have a look now. And it doesn't look like any vultures have found the carcass yet. And they could be busy eating somewhere else. I can see a retired buffalo, but I cannot see a lion yet. Ah, there they are. Very flat cats. Well, this might give us a nice chance to actually have a good look at the carcass, see how much is left, try to figure out how much longer they're going to be here for. So I see some more lion bellies behind. So there are lions lying to the left of the carcass and to the right. You can see they've devoured a whole back leg since we were last here. So when we left this morning, the majority of the back left leg was still intact, and now it is a bone. Still a fair bit of meat on this carcass, not that much. They've done a very good job. Still the neck and forequarters and brisket to get to. And if we go up from the carcass, we can just see this grotesquely large belly behind, panting heavily with the heat caused by digesting. And then the rest are lying up in front. One's in front of me, and the others are off to the left. So, very little action. I'm just going to have another look around the other side of the carcass, and we can try to figure out how much longer these lions are going to stay on this buffalo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys some hints and explain, and I'm going to get you guys to guess how long you think the lions might stay on this buffalo carcass for. So we're going to go have a look at how much meat's left. We'll also try to have a look in the cavity, see if the flies have laid any eggs, if the maggots have started feeding on the carcass as well. That will obviously speed up the decomposition of the carcass. So really, really fascinating stuff. As you can see, quite a lot of the, let me just go a bit more forward there for you guys. Put another window through here. There we go. So you can see there's still quite a lot of meat left. The whole forequarters and brisket. So let's have a look. So the whole neck's still intact, both front legs, and there will be quite a lot of, not the greatest amount of meat around the ribs and stuff, but I'm quite sure they will utilize it and eat it. Obviously, it all depends on whether the other predators challenge them for this, a large clan of hyenas, or if the male lions arrive and decide to start dominating the carcass. But how long do you think the lions, the Nkuhumas, we'll just keep it to just the Nkuhumas, would stay with that amount of meat left? And I would say there's probably 35 to 40% of the carcass left. And let's have a look. We're going to move around a little bit further, see if we can get a window into the buffalo, so to speak, and see if we can see if the flies have laid the eggs and the maggots have also started feeding on it. But on our way through, that is one large set of tummies and the two little sub-adult females here. Look at this guy using the little sickle bush as a pillow. So as we came in from a bit of a distance, and we stopped on those clearings, and we had a bit of a look before we drove in. And what we were doing is we were checking if there were possibly some hyenas around. And so this morning I only saw one, and it might be a while before sort of the grapevine or the hyena grapevine spreads to let the other hyenas know that there is quite a lot of meat here. And also, it's unlikely that the hyenas would make a play for them now during this time during the day, and especially just one single hyena around. Definitely will keep and keep tabs on it. But at the moment, no hyenas around. So we're going to cross across very quickly to Scotty, who's got something a little bit different from a fat and flat cat.
Welcome back, everyone, and this is the third attempt we've had at this specific little bird, hoping to share it with you, and I think we're going to finally get lucky. And because this is a bird that we don't see very often, I want to open this one up to the floor, and you guys need to tell us what bird you think it is. Now, be quick. We're only going to send through the first couple of answers. And hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And this is going to be a definite extra bird, I'm fairly certain, for a lot of your bird lists. And for those of you who may be joining for the first time, it's quite popular amongst our viewers to get bird lists going, and that way keep track of all the different birds you see with us, and also how many you've seen in total. Well, we've just got the most awesome report from BJ in Pennsylvania, and BJ's let us know that his African grey parrot responded to the call of the pearl-spotted owl that I mimicked earlier on. So even people's pets are getting involved in Safari Live. How wonderful. Now quickly, guys, get your answers through. We should have one already. And while we wait, though, we'll just let Andrew zoom out and take you on a bit of a look around here to give you an idea of the surrounding scene. It's a beautiful open area that surrounds the the Twin Dams waterhole. It's an area where we've had countless memorable sightings. In the large tree to the bottom left of your screen, big dark green tree, we saw two of the Styx lioness chased two leopard, Mvula and Kwatile. They were busy mating, but their romance was interrupted by two lioness that chased them up that tree. And it was also in this area where we had our first sighting of the Styx lioness and their three tiny cubs. Well done. We've got the first correct answer through, and it's Anne with the purple roller. Very, very well done. And now Andrew can take you in for a closer look at the purple roller, so now you will all know who it is next time. And I believe a few of you were close with the European roller, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my book out, and that way be able to show you the differences between the European and the purple roller. One of the major clues would be that the European rollers are summer migrants, and they only come here during the summer months. So they already left probably around February. Okay, they're an incredibly beautiful family of birds, the lilac-breasted or the rollers, and take a look at all those colors. Now, the one that we see commonly at this time of the year is the lilac-breasted roller, and throughout the year. The European roller you can see over here, it's not nearly as dark as the purple roller that we're looking at now. And if Andrew just zooms down slowly, or pans down rather, you'll get to see the purple roller. So that should all make sense. It's got a clearly purple breast, heavily streaked chest, also with that green tinge on its wings. The broad-billed roller is one of my favorites, but we only get them up in the northern parts of the Kruger National Park. We are currently situated in the southern third, you could say. And now I'm going to task Andrew with something a little bit difficult, but he's ready for it. It's up in the sky, and it's going to be beautiful if we get there in time. I think we will. Andrew's all over it. Look at this. From one beautiful bird to another. This is a Bateleur eagle. We did get a brief glimpse of one this morning, but not nearly as well as this. And it's something that I'm so envious of, being able to float up in the sky without even beating their wings. The view from there must be incredible. Now, you'll notice as it turns towards us that it's got a black half and white half underneath its wings. There we go. So easy to remember that it's a male dressed in a suit, half black, half white. Oh, look at the roller in the foreground. This is too good. Well done, Andrew. That was incredible. Ah, the sun again. Now, bear in mind what he's doing, pulling the focus like that may appear to be easy, but he's only making it look that way. It's not an easy thing that he's making happen here. As I was saying, though, that was a male Bateleur, and is it gone? No, it's still there. The female Bateleur would have an almost entirely white underwing with just a very thin black trailing edge. Now he's going for a go-away bird. When's it going to stop, Andrew? Now he's showing off. And you can see how that go-away bird lacks the ability of the Bateleur to soar effortlessly in the sky. An adaptation of a lot of the predatory birds. Whew. Well, that was awesome, and well done to Andrew on camera. I hope you all enjoyed that little bird party we've just shared with you. But back to the Lions with Brent. We'll see you all a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. You can see we're still busy with our visual dissection of a buffalo carcass. And we've been trying to look if we can see any fly eggs, and I can. Unfortunately, they're very small, and we can't really get an angle to show you. But we can see the flies buzzing around. And there's a couple of different species. There's a very prominent green and metallic fly there, which you find often around the carcasses. There we go. A little bit to the left there, Brian. See him there. And see it's a bit bigger than the other fly species. And you do find them around carcass quite a lot. And you'll actually notice, those of you who've been watching for a long time, that there seem to be actually very few flies here in comparison to some of the carcasses we've been around during the wet season. And that's obviously because of the cold, and a lot of the insects suffer, or don't suffer, they just don't breed as much during the dry season, and they will have a sort of a boom after the first rains. But I think maybe tomorrow we might start seeing some maggots, especially on the inside of the cavity. I'm quite sure there's a lot more eggs than we can see, and it'll be quite fascinating to get that. And inside the cavity there we can see quite a bit of congealed blood, and that almost becomes lumpy. And those two little subadults we were looking at earlier, from what their faces, they look like they might have been eating some of that congealed blood a little bit earlier. And I know we spoke about a little bit, if we go up to the left, Ryan, just off the hip, the top ribs there. And you can see that the lions have actually managed to chew through some of those big ribs. Those are obviously a lot shorter, being quite close to the spine there, but they will attempt to chew even the other ribs, even though there isn't that much meat on them. And it all depends, obviously, if they are unmolested by hyenas and other lions at this carcass. So Rhea has probably got it closest, and she says probably 2 days. It might possibly extend to the third, but I don't think so. There are 8 individuals in this pride. I think another 2 days that they'll be static here. They might not move too very far once they're finished, but it is possible that they might stay a third day. I think more than likely 2 days. So well done, Rhea. It's incredible. And one of the amazing things about being able to go on these safaris every day is we can actually watch the sort of deconstruction of a carcass like this. We were lucky enough to do it with the hippo, but this is sort of the more complete story because we've been with it since it was alive to now, and at the end when there's going to be very little meat and the scavengers might be around, it'll be quite an interesting thing to watch for a while. But that is one of the joys of being able to spend as much time in the bush as we do. I'm quite fascinated to see if we get any of those carrion beetles coming in during. I've been trying to remember whether I see carrion beetles during the winter months, but over the next few days, I'm sure we'll find out. Let's go have a look at some flat cats. Enough of looking at dead meat. And I know this sometimes can be quite difficult for you guys to witness, but this is nature, and this is what happens out here. And if this buffalo hadn't succumbed to the Nkuhuma's attempts, the Nkuhuma pride would have probably started getting into a lot of trouble. And obviously it is very sad to watch, but it is very exciting at the same time. And we must remember we are here to observe. And what an incredible experience it was to be able to watch that hunt from start to finish. And what a wonderful experience. And as I know, as I said, it is quite brutal, and they do start feeding on the animal when it's alive and give those bellows. But it is nature at its sort of most raw and its finest. And there was a couple of moments there where I thought the buffalo might get away when he managed to get the lioness off the throat, but she just managed to grip onto the nose. Now that is a fat cat, if I've ever seen a fat cat. Now that is a serious belly. I literally don't think that lioness on the right could put another morsel. think she's eaten more than Junior this time. There's old Junior. I mean, there's almost nowhere to put that belly. So since we've just left that buffalo carcass, Don from Georgia is asking, do we know how old that buffalo is? And Don, I would guess he's probably between 10 and 12 years old. Buffalo don't live much beyond sort of 14 or 15 in the wild, so he was an old buffalo bull, and he was within a group of about 20 buffalo bulls that the lions chased. On air, we could only see about 3 or 4 running, apart from the one that got caught. But obviously, me sitting right here, I could see a little bit more, and there were about 20 of them in total. And one of the reasons those old bulls, once they've been pushed out of the breeding herds, form these bachelor groups is as a protection against lions. And sort of your odds are greatly decreased if there are 20 of you as opposed to 1 of you. So that unlucky sod had a 1 in 20 chance of being eaten, and just happened to be the unlucky buffalo on that day. So guys, I don't think these cats are going to move too much. It would be quite interesting to come back here much later in the safari and see if possibly the hyenas gather some masses, or if something else happens to come along. But for Don, we're just going to go back past the head of that buffalo, and I'll show you how I aged it. And you can have a look at its teeth. And teeth are quite a good indicator of age in quite a lot of animals out here. No trees behind me. So as we approach the remnants of this buffalo, we can just try get around her. And we've got a few more buffalo carcass related questions that we're going to get to shortly. And I'm just going to see where the best view is. Can you get to the teeth there, Brian? There we go, we'll have a quick look at the teeth, and then we'll move on to the hide and horn. So you can see those teeth are quite well worn, and quite a bit of decay, and starting to get a little bit smooth. So this is an old buffalo towards the end of his sort of reign on this earth. Definitely, his reign has ended. But you can see his teeth aren't in the best condition. That indicates quite an old animal, probably over 10 years. But to be more specific than that would be quite difficult. And then Dwarf would like to know what happens to the horn. And so the horn is keratin, which is the same as hair, which mammals are unable to digest. So there's a very specialized insect called a horn moth, and it is a type of moth that will lay larvae in the horns of an animal like a buffalo, and over time they'll actually break down that keratin, and then there will be very little left apart from the bone. And then even over time, with the exposure to the sun and elements, even the bone will break down and crumble and move back into the soil. And as we've seen quite often, buffalo bones are chewed quite regularly here by lots of different animals. We've seen giraffe, we've seen bushbuck, nyala, impala, all chewing various bits of buffalo for calcium, and as well as your rodents, squirrels, mice, gerbils, and even porcupines will chew on old bones to get that extra calcium that they need. The hide is a bit more complicated. Sometimes I have seen the lions will actually eat the hide if they really feel the need to. Most of the times it will some of it will rot, some of it will dry in this very dry at this time of the year. It will dry and become very hard, and then eventually, as well with the elements, will just sort of disappear. But hides can last and hang around for a couple of years after the animal has died. So looking at the hide, like there, we can see a buffalo, even though they don't look like the hairiest animal, there is quite a fair bit of hair on them. And just after the kill, we could see the lions regularly licking the hide, and we actually saw it a bit this morning as well. And what they're often doing there is they're licking to remove the hair, which makes it easier for them to use those molars and premolars as a cutting instrument to cut through there, so there's less to cut through. So they'll use their tongue to remove that hair so they can get in there with their molars and premolars to cut that really thick hide. And that is, Dennis from Massachusetts was wondering why they did that. So hopefully that helps explain that a bit, Dennis. So I think we're going to mosey on along, see what else we can find. Maybe go check some of the water holes. Maybe there's some ellies around, and maybe we'll get lucky with some leopard tracks. Only time will tell, and that's one of the most wonderful things about being out in the bush, that you never know what's going to be around the next corner. Sorry, just getting through here. While we disappear from the flat cuts and the remnants of that buffalo, we've got I've got a question from Jeremy, who's a new viewer. Welcome, and I hope you're enjoying the live safari so far. Great to have you on the back of the vehicle. Jeremy would like to know, how long are those lions going to sleep for? Well, Jeremy, lions have an incredibly fast digestive system. So you would probably find if we spent the full 3 hours here, during that time, a couple of the individuals would get up and start feeding, and when we come back later, they might very well be doing that. But one of the reasons they have this incredibly fast digestive system is to be able to take advantage of these type of situations. So they'll literally gorge, and they can eat sort of 20 kilograms of meat in a sitting, and they literally just eat as much as they can. And you saw the size of those bellies. And then probably within a couple of hours, they'll be able to not eat the same amount, but definitely able to eat sort of at least another couple of kilograms. And this is a sort of evolutionary adaptation to be able to make sure that, because quite often they do lose kills to male lions, to hyenas, so it's to try and ensure they get as much benefit from that kill as possible. So probably, I'd say after that big first initial, they'd probably sleep for a couple hours, and they would start feeding. Now they would sleep and continue to feed throughout the day. So I hope that helps, Jeremy, and welcome, and keep sending through questions. Hey guys, just got to get on there. game drive channel for a second. Very, very pretty little flycatcher. Here we go. Now, I know Scotty's been prepping you guys on your bird lists. That's probably one a lot of you guys don't have on your bird list yet. So, I know he's popped there, he popped up again. So, let's see if anyone can actually identify this. I'll give you the family because it is quite a difficult bird. So, it is a flycatcher. And remember to send your answers via email to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Tax, I just left that the Zingala open lock and no one responding. So I'm going to see if I can possibly call it out a little bit. There seems to be a nice little bird party in here. So I'm going to see. Maybe if we just roll forward a little bit, we might be able to get a better visual, and then I'm just going to see if they responded to my alarm calls today. They didn't really want to the last time. Oh, there we go. We've got some response. Oh no, don't fly away. Straight through at the back on that russet bush willow. There we go. One we have seen a few times before, but they are very mobile birds. Just see if we can get a window through here. So it looks like these guys are disappearing. So from one feathered friend to another, we're going to cross to Scotty quickly.
Well, it sounds like having some good luck with the birds this afternoon. And maybe it's because it's cooling down a bit with this overcast weather. The birds are less likely to fly off, and they enjoy staying huddled up. A lot of them have got their feathers ruffled up, creating a thick blanketing effect or insulating effect over their body. And this is an interesting bird because even though it is a kingfisher, its name may be misleading because it actually hunts insects, and the only time you'll see it at the water's edge will be when it's coming to drink. And it's the brown hooded kingfisher. So possibly yet another one to add to the bird list. We are driving through a beautiful, beautiful section of Djuma, and it's one of my favorite places to drive. You couldn't really call it a road, because we are in the middle of a dried up riverbed. It will flow seasonally in the summer months, but now in our very dry winter, the only thing that is going to be flowing up and down this riverbed is us. And isn't it so wonderful? Actually, what's quite nice, and I'll show you now, is if you engage low range in this vehicle, you can actually drive the vehicle without any hands. So sure. Because we're in the low range, the vehicle just follows the tracks and it drives itself. So it's quite a unique and fun way to get around from A to B. Look, no hands. And here we go on a little riverbed cruise. The sun's just poked out, and I know one of our viewers, oh, be careful. It works well until you see an animal. And it's a very pretty antelope just off to our right. So short-lived, but I hope you enjoyed that brief cruise, and I'm sure most of you will be happy that we ended it, because this is a male Inyala, and they really are such pretty antelopes. You'll notice little white ivory tips on the top of his horns, indicating that he's a male in his prime. And we actually saw a few others in the same riverbed just a few days ago, and it's that time of the year where the antelope, or a lot of them, will be mating. So what we will potentially see up ahead is some more Inyala, and maybe we'll see the Inyala doing their very strange ritualistic dominance display, where they slowly pronk, a slow motion kind of dance as they move forward with all the hairs on their back extended. We would need to have a few more of them around for him to display his dominance. There's a little gap. As Andrew zooms in, you'll notice that very prominent white chevron between his eyes. The females lack this. And you'll also notice how he's swiveling his ears backwards and forwards, all directions. On a windy afternoon like this, the prey species will be on high alert, because any rustle in the grass that they may hear that is brought up from the wind could possibly be a predator, so they're very cautious of that. They've also got these very distinctive creamy brown socks on the bottom parts of their legs, a spotted rump. He doesn't have as many vertical white stripes as they can have, and they're quite dull, but that could possibly be because he's a little bit older, and it is a tough time of the year, so he may not be looking as good as he could be, and therefore the stripes are not as prominent as they can be. Wonderful. Well, I think it's going to be a while before he decides to move out of that thick bush where he was evidently nibbling on some fallen down leaves. We did continue to have tracks of the same herd of elephant we were initially following, but they crossed the riverbed into a very, very thick and impenetrable block. Unwise to try and head in there after them, and it's because it's a very big block, it'll take them a while before they get to the nearest road, so we're going to have to go and look for something else, which is not a problem because there's lots and lots of different animals and also beautiful scenes that we like to show you out here. And even though you can get led into an area hoping to find one animal while searching for it, you very often bump into other interesting things along the way. That's important to remember, even though we may have goals for the drive to track down the bigger stars of the show or the harder to find animals like lion and leopard. It's not that we're going to overlook anything along the way. As Andrew's showing you, there's some wonderful big trees, some terrible driving, a lot of large evergreens. These are leadwoods you're looking at, line this riverbed. We've been searching in these trees in the hope that we may find a large owl called a Verreaux's eagle owl. Considering we started with such a small one earlier on, we were hoping to show you the biggest owl we get in this area, and we haven't had any luck, but we know that they do like to stay in these big trees in the riverbed, especially where we've just come from, where we've already driven through. There's a pair that stay in that area, and some of you may remember a beautiful morning with James. They were vocalizing, and you got to see them and hear them calling at the same time. While we drive around in the afternoon, it's important not to assume that predators have not been moving. A lot of the time you will check the roads very carefully in the early morning, because that is typically when predators move. But on cool winter days like this, there's nothing stopping, especially leopard, moving during the course of the day. And I just saw some predator tracks coming down the road towards us, but there's some hyena tracks, so not worth following up on. And that's not because we don't like seeing hyena, but it's simply because they cover such large distances on a daily basis that it would be near impossible to track them down. It certainly is an option for later on this evening's drive to potentially pop in to the hyena den. We had another magical morning there and saw again some really interesting behavior. I think this new cub that's been born into the clan could well be a future queen, and it's causing a lot of interesting behavior between clan members. There seems to be an increase in excitement and agitation between the various clan members. And we're going to look forward to trying to piece together this complex puzzle that is the hierarchy of a hyena clan. And also simply enjoy viewing some great behavior and some very cute little cub action. Australia is a beautiful, beautiful tree that Andrew's showing you, called a torchwood tree. And I've spent a lot of time looking at this tree because Brian, the other cameraman, and myself once broke down here for 3 hours. There's a nest in the main big fork in this tree, and it's the nest of a pair of African harrier hawks. They are no longer using it, and we had parked here in the hope that we'd get a glimpse of them coming in and out of this nest, but we broke down and they didn't come anywhere near us. So, some interesting memories of this tree. But from this beautiful tree, we're going to send you back to Brent's, and we'll catch up with you around the next corner.
Welcome back, everyone. Apparently that little bird caused quite a little confusion. That's good. Got to keep you guys on your toes. It even actually nearly caught me for a second. But there's a very specific diagnostic that actually gave it away at the end. And I believe someone actually got it right. So it was a grey tit flycatcher. And the one it's most easily confused with, if you see very distinct white around the around the eye, and very well done to Joan in England. You got that right. But the real big diagnostic, because if we'll get to that now, if we have a look at the other flycatcher, which we do see quite often around here, is the ashy or blue-gray flycatcher, and it has an all-grail tail, even though it has that very similar, not quite the same, facial markings. It is the white outer tail feathers is what gives it away as a grey tit flycatcher. So very, very well done to Joan in England. What got me was all the name changing. I used to know it as a lead-coloured flycatcher, and so Joan and Phoebe got it correct. So very well done, guys. Not an easy bird and not a great view. So we've obviously got some serious twitches out there. So we'll continue on. Maybe we can try find a bird that's going to stump everyone. Isn't that beautiful late afternoon light popping through? Nice little redwood forest ahead of us. So as forest is a strong word, there's about 8. We're just going to fly down the southern boundary quickly and then get back up onto the crests, checking the boundary for any possible movement of leopard during the day. It feels like we haven't seen a leopard for quite a while. We're just going to check tracks on this road. Quite a lot of movement of leopard up and down in this area. Wind picking up. You can actually see the guarri bushes starting to shake. So we'll make our way back up to the eastern boundary, which is also another sort of big crossing point for animals. And then we're going to make our way towards Guarri Pan Road. I just had a chat to Aubrey, who's one of the guides from Djuma, while you guys were with Scotty, and he had leopard tracks that went down there and then went off the road. So we're going to go have another look in that area, and hopefully we get some luck. There's no tracks of it coming out on the opposite side, so there's a strong possibility, especially with that quite dark and windy nights we've been having, that maybe something, leopards caught something in that block, and no one has just been deep enough in to find it yet. So we will definitely give that area a try before heading back to those very fat cats. Not strange weather, but funny weather we're having at the moment. It's hot, then it's cold, and every time the sun disappears behind the clouds, I think, oh, I should put my jersey on. And then the next moment the sun comes out and it's nice and toasty again. And the same, I keep finding myself putting my hat on and off all afternoon today. We have a very, very cool birding question from Sarah, who is 17 in Ohio. Welcome on the safari, Sarah. That is a very, very, very good question. She has asked, does Africa have peacocks? Well, on my book, Birds of Africa, on the front cover is a peacock, and it's called a Congo peacock. And I'm going to get you to the right page now and show you a bit more. It is one of the more recently discovered bird species. Just give me 2 seconds and I should find it, being the only peacocks in the book. So it was actually discovered quite recently, and it lives in possibly one of the most impenetrable parts of Africa, and probably one of the birds that is highest up on a serious birder's wish list is to see a Congo peacock. And for some reason I can't seem to find the Congo peacock in the book. It's that rare. It's so difficult to find it in the book. It's so difficult to find in real life, but it's even difficult to find in the book. I'm just going to go back to the beginning and start where I should have, with the index. It's not one of the birds I look at often, so I don't know where it's hidden in the book. It's hidden with the guinea fowl. So there it is, a Congo peacock. And strangely enough, I even have a recording of its call here, because of spending some time in that part of the world. I have not seen it yet. And there it is, there's the male and the female. It was only discovered in the sort of 50s. So one of the more recently discovered of the sort of large bird species in Africa. And it is definitely one of the birds high on my list. And I have a very strange call, which I'm playing now. So it's not something you would expect. Very, very strange. And if we have a look at the distribution map off over here, so that is probably one of the least explored areas of Africa, right in the center of DRC. There are very few people there, and the people that do live there are very much sort of almost living in the same state as they were 100 years ago. There's no roads, there's very little access. There's 1 or 2 runways built by missionaries in that area, and there's no cars. And most movement around there is all done by boat or by sort of dugout canoes. And even then, if you take the Congo River up to the tributaries to get in that area, you've got to watch out for things like river pirates. Strangely enough, but there are river pirates still operating on the Congo River. So probably one of the most inaccessible places to get to in Africa. And also, strange enough, the home of the bonobo. So 2 of Africa's sort of really, really interesting species live in that area. And I actually know a few people who worked on that bonobo project. And they actually used to see Congo peacocks regularly. And they didn't even know it was such a big deal, because primatologists are very one species focused, and they were just all about watching bonobos, and they didn't even realize they were so lucky they used to see them on a weekly basis. They're one of the rarest birds in the world. But thanks very much for that, Sarah. What a great question, and not something you get to talk about too often, peacocks in Africa. It almost sounds ridiculous. Well, we answer quite a few questions on these safaris. So now there's a question on a question, which is quite interesting. So James from Kansas City is just wondering, when we're sitting in a sighting and you've got vehicles from the other properties, and the questions that the guests were actually there are asking, how do they stack up compared to the questions that you guys who are watching us all around the world ask? Well, James, they are a little bit different. You guys definitely, and it always depends on the guests, but you guys generally seem to go a little bit more in depth. And that's because you must remember, a lot of these people are only out for 4 days. So they do their 4 days, they'll cover the basics, lion, leopard questions, elephant questions and whatnot. Where there's one thing that's incredible about being able to go out almost on safari every day with us is that you guys start looking a little bit further and a little bit in depth. And we'll start trying to push you a little bit further in depth and specifically into like areas that we might find really interesting. So I mean, your average safari guest isn't going to start building a bird list, but yet for you guys it's a really incredible thing. You can actually, over the weeks and months that we're out in the bush, you can build a bird list, you can build a tree list, you can even build a hoho list. And if those of you who are new might not know what a hoho is, it's a sort of a South African colloquialism for a bug. So there is so much more, and because you guys are quite often with us more than a couple of days at a time. Oh, striped donkey. Oh, best. How's that, Brian? Or forward a bit? Little window there. So generally it is different, and obviously quite a lot of the questions are the same, but we do seem to get a level of questions that are far more in-depth here than we would on a normal safari. And there we go. And just managed to spot that striped donkey through the bush. I wonder if that was one of the ones who was running with the buffalo. We're not that far from where the lions are on that buffalo kill. So we're on the eastern boundary at the moment, and we're going to continue on. I'm not going to try off-road to get closer. I think with this strong wind that's around, it might scare that zebra, but as we pan out, you can see how well that camouflage works. So that striped animal sort of disappears. That black and white doesn't become as apparent. You can just see his tail swishing there. Okay, so we're going to continue on, leave the zebras to themselves. There's a few more behind that one, but I think if we tried to get a bit closer with a strong wind, it would just cause them to gallop off. Sticking with our feathered friends, Judith from North Carolina is wondering, do we see any martial eagle owls in the area? Judith, unfortunately not. If we did, we would have found a new species. Ah, look who has possibly found the lion carcass. Another one of the birds. Let me just get forward a bit. So it's taken them a while, but that looks like there's two hooded vultures now circling above where the lion carcass is. So the hooded vultures are the smallest of the vulture species we get in this area. And hopefully they will drop down. What happens quite often with all the vulture species is that when the lions are on the ground, they would, when the lions are on the ground, they would stay in the trees. They wouldn't land onto the ground. A hooded might, because they've got a slightly different strategy to the bigger vultures, and they have are much more slightly built than the other vultures, so they tend to pick up tiny little scraps, and sometimes the predators ignore them a bit more than the bigger vultures. But lions are very protective over their kills, even vultures. I've actually seen a lioness catch and grab a vulture out of the air and kill it, but not eat it. Quite ironic, we have the biggest and the smallest vultures next to each other here. So there's the hooded vulture, and you see it's got a very, very slightly built beak. You actually often find them eating lion feces and leopard feces, as well as wild dog feces. They have been known to hang around wild dog dens. And then just below we've got the lappet-faced vulture. You can see massive beak in comparison, also a lot bigger. Hooded vultures can get to about 75 centimeters, whereas a lappet face goes to 115 centimeters. But I think hopefully tomorrow that if the hooded vultures have spotted and they land on the trees around there, a lot of other vultures, your whitebacks, and hopefully some of these great big lappet-faced and even possibly a Cape vulture will come down and join. The Cape vulture, the biggest, second biggest out of the vulture species we get here. Not quite as big as the lappet-faced, but they are quite rare, and they only nest in cliffs. So they can often feed on carcasses that are hundreds of kilometers from where they nest. So they'll spend a day or two feeding on the carcass before flying back to their nests, which can be 100 kilometers. The closest breeding colony of Cape vultures in this area is probably about, it's not too far, it's probably about 60 kilometers in the Drakensberg Mountains. But so hopefully as we watch that sort of carcass disappear, we will get to see some great vulture action around there. And back to Judith's question, wow, we've got the book on the predatory birds. Judith was asking about a martial eagle owl. I think you might have been referring to a martial eagle, and that is the biggest eagle species we get in the area. And there we go. And they are incredibly massive. We do see them from time to time, not as often as I would like. They are the apex predator of the sky, and they've got a wingspan that's over 2 meters. Number 4, there we go. And there they are. Very, very pretty birds as well. Very striking. And then we do get various eagle owls here, from the giant eagle owl, which is also known as the Verreaux's eagle owl, and to the Cape eagle owl. But I think we'll save those for after dark. So we're traveling down a nice straight cut line. We're going to cross here over to another straight cut line with slightly a better view.
Welcome to the northern boundary of Djuma. We're actually not too far away from Brent as the crow flies. And isn't this a spectacular afternoon? A few rays of sunlight bursting through the clouds. All that's missing now is a leopard in the tree in the foreground. So Andrew and I have been scanning the marula trees in the hope that we could see the telltale sign of a vertical tail hanging down, or the 4 legs dangling again vertically down. That's what you want to look for when looking for leopards up in trees. And this is the time of year to spot them up there. The reason being is that a lot of the trees have lost all of their leaves, and more importantly, the marula trees, which is one of their most comfortable trees. And as we drive along, we will try and point out some of these marula trees. Basically, though, they've got very horizontal branches which allow for comfortable perches for leopards to not only sleep and relax, but also hoist their kills and dangle their kills up there. So one of these days we are going to spot a leopard, and you can spot them from just about half a mile away, from a very, very long distance, provided the tree is silhouetted and so is the leopard. It's going to happen one of these days, and I can't wait to share that moment with you. And to be honest, it's a little bit overdue, because none of us, barring James with VM the other day, they did a good one, but it was quite close to the road. We want to spot one that's far off in the distance and then wiggle our way through the bush to take you closer by. So amongst many things to look forward to on Safari Live, that is certainly one of them. Now, we are about to dip down into a bit of a low-lying area where we may intermittently lose signal. But don't worry, we'll pop up the other side and it should rectify itself. And it's not every day it does this. It's quite an intricate system, and some days the signal is better than others. So let's wait and see. We are slowly going to meander our way towards the hyena den site and see if there's any signs of action there. It's getting to the right stage of the evening, but sometimes you may arrive and it is not active. I think it is worth a gamble though, because we have been having such incredible viewing there over the last few weeks.
Welcome back. Sorry, it seems like Scotty found some gremlins in that dip, so you're stuck with me for a little bit longer. We're making our way towards those last leopard tracks, see if we get any luck in that area. And this strange weather that keeps me wondering whether I should put a jersey on or put my hat on keeps continuing, but it is quite beautiful, and there's a lovely ray of cloud. I'm just going to stop in the gap down here. How's that, Brian? There's a lovely light breaking through the clouds there. So, as much as it is making me question my wardrobe choice, the Sunset Safari, it is absolutely spectacular to look at. You can probably hear that quite strong wind picking up on the microphone. So it is a little bit chilly with the wind. So this road is a particular, for some reason, very great highway for leopard. And here are these tracks that we've started to follow. Can you get them there, Brian?
Yeah.
Which one?
You choose.
Good.
Yep.
So there we go. We can see a nice male leopard track. So what do you guys think this is an adult male or a young male? Remember, you can send your answers to questions at wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter. So we can see it's from this morning. The edges aren't as sharp. If I had to put my boot next to it, you can see how fine that little edge is on my boot, where these are rounded edges. So these boots don't make as good a imprints as my others, unfortunately. So this is the track we're going to be following up on. We are a few hours behind it, but still it's our only lead for leopard at the moment, so we're going to follow on. So those tracks, from what I heard to Aubrey, where they leave this road quite a bit further on, it's straight west. So almost directly in line with the way our vehicle's facing at the moment. And there's something incredible about tracking cats on foot. So while we continue to track this male leopard, we're going to cross back to Scotty, and hopefully we'll have an update for you on these leopard tracks a little later.
Well, exciting stuff, and well done to Brent for locating those male leopard tracks. Now, we have got word from some of you that there are some waterbuck that look like they're fighting at the Arethusa waterhole, and we've been having a little bit of signal issues on Arethusa lately, so that's why I didn't actually want to head across there this afternoon initially, but that report sounds too good to miss out, so we are going to relatively hastily make our way in that direction in the hope that we'll get there in time to see those waterbuck tussling it out. And it'll probably take about 15 or 20 minutes to get there, but it's something that we have yet to show you on Safari Live, so let's go and see if we can get something new. I'm going to ask Andrew to just pan up to the sky quickly. It is so beautiful. Look at that. Absolutely wonderful. This tree on the right hand side, which I'm just going to slowly drive around, is a marula tree, so you can see the very horizontal branches that a leopard would love to sleep in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to point out where we did have a wonderful sighting of Nkuhuma, or I think it was Quarantine. He was lying just on that branch in January this year. A very happy memory of him being there. And you can just see how many comfortable spots you could find if you were a leopard in that tree. Sadly, Quarantine, that young male leopard, and his brother have started moving further afield as they have come of age and now need to start trying to establish their own territory. Beautiful. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, sir.
Now, I just got a question through from Nicole in Israel. Good to have you on board with us, Nicole. And Nicole's interested to know, what would we do if it were to rain, and what do the animals do if it rains? Well, thankfully, Nicole, during our winter months, the chance of rain is very slim. It's the summer months that we get most of our rainfall. So even though we've got a cloudy sky today, it's in all likelihood not going to make us or the animals wet. Now, what we do in the rain is a tricky one, because we've got so much equipment and quite intricate equipment on the vehicles. We don't run the risk of getting them wet, and we usually seek shelter, and depending on the storm or how long it is, we may do some questions and answers with you under shelter, or we may simply cancel the drive until the rain stops. So there's various things that we will do during the rainy season. Thankfully, the last summer we didn't get as much rain as we usually do, so it didn't impact on our broadcast too much. Obviously it did on the environment, but it is natural flow to not have huge amounts of rain every year, so a drought cycle is common every 5 to 7 years in this part of South Africa. The animals, they will, depending on the individual and depending on the species, will often lie down and try and seek whatever shelter they can find, but it's not an easy business for them to seek shelter, so they often just have to weather it out and sit in whatever little bits of shelter they can get. They can often look quite miserable, but a lot of the time that it is raining, we will often head in, and so do most of the game drive vehicles. It's not pleasant being out in the rain, but again, it depends on the nature of the rain and also where exactly you're driving around, and there's a lot of variables that go into it, Nicole. Now, we aren't going to waste much time, as beautiful as the setting is here at the Nkuhuma waterhole. There's a few Cape Buffalo out there, and like I said, we need to keep moving to the Arethusa waterhole. It's quite some way from here, so let's go. There's also a 24-hour-a-day waterhole camera at this waterhole that helps provide us with some useful intelligence, just like the intelligence we got from the Arethusa waterhole. Typically don't enjoy driving quickly when on safari, in the fear that we may miss something, and simply because it's not very enjoyable to bounce around these roads, but sometimes you just have to, and this is not our usual kind of scene to be rushing up to, but it still is an interesting scene, and it'll be great if these waterbuck are still fighting and interacting when we get there. The gravity of the fight that they're having, I'm not too sure about. It's just a report, but it's certainly worth going to investigate. I'm told that it's not the most serious of fights, but it is getting fairly heated, and you never know when it may trigger into a full-blown competition between these male waterbuck for the ladies. And while we hustle on in that direction, Brent is doing quite the opposite to us. He's slowly creeping through the bush on foot, trying to track down this male leopard whose tracks he had earlier. So he's in a very different boat to us, and isn't it wonderful how we can all share in on not just one vehicle and one person safari, but two at the same time, chopping and changing. I really do envy you guys sometime, because you aren't missing out on any of the action. We've been chatting about seasons, and the wet season, the dry season, summer versus winter, and Dolly would like to know, what is the coldest temperature it would get to in winter? Potentially just below 0 degrees Celsius, but it's very uncommon. I've only seen frost in the Sabi Sands a handful of times in all the years I've been here. So I've never snowed here before, and very seldom does it drop below 0. However, it is important to notice, excuse the pump there, it's busy pumping water to our house from a borehole so that we can have a shower tonight. And even though, like I said, the temperature may not drop below 0 when we're moving in an open vehicle, that can often drop the temperature, depending on how fast you're going, by about 3 or 4 degrees centigrade. Excuse me, Impala, clear out. We are going to the waterbuck. There we go. Apologies if you had never seen an impala before, but they are very numerous and you will get to see them again. And it's not that we don't like them, but we do have a task at hand here. What I'm going to do in the meantime is change over to the Arethusa game drive channel. Basically, the vehicles that get to traverse this specific area will be on a certain channel, and the vehicles who are traversing the Arethusa property and west thereof and south thereof are on another channel. So I'm just going to switch over onto their radio waves. Now, there's something up ahead that we are not going to be able to bypass, like the impala. Because you don't see them as often. And this looks like a beautiful specimen. Oh, well, she's not interested in hanging around for us, but that's fine because there's a few more that I've seen up ahead. So let's see if those two are a little bit more welcoming. Oh no, it looks like they are running off into the distance already as well. 3 of them. They all look to be like ladies. And let's just stop here and enjoy a moment with the giraffe. Wonderful. It could be this windy afternoon that's making them a little bit flustered. And a lot of the prey species will become uneasy in windier weather. What a beautiful silhouette though as that giraffe heads off in towards the sunset. Very good. Well, like I say, we usually don't rush around from A to B overlooking any of the animals, but this afternoon is an exception. And it really would be great to see these waterbucks tussling it out. I'm told Brent is still hot on the trail of this leopard, and hopefully in the next few minutes he will have some great news for all of us. But it's important we allow him now to really focus on the task at hand and give him some time to try and piece together the puzzle of this male leopard's movements. about 5 female giraffes that we just drove past, but there were no young amongst them. And Nicole would like to know if there are any young giraffes on the reserve at the moment. Not that I've seen, Nicole. And more likely in the early summer months will we see a spike in births of young giraffe. And they really are such cute little animals. So you're going to have to stick around for the summer safari if you want to see some young giraffe. It's not strictly the summer months that they will give birth in, but there certainly is a peak in their birth rates during that period because there's more plentiful food in the summer months. So we're on our northern boundary earlier, now we're on our southern boundary of Djuma. But we can continue further south along the Arathusa boundary now in an attempt to get to the Arathusa waterhole. And I guess, like I said a little bit earlier, some of you may have just joined the show a bit more recently. We're not rushing off to a pack of wild dogs. I repeat, we are not rushing off to a pack of wild dogs. We are rushing off to 2 pairs of waterbuck who are apparently having some kind of an argument with one another. And we don't see waterbuck arguing very often, so it would be great to share a glimpse of that with you. That is the beauty of Safari Live, which differs from coming out here on Safari, is that you can join in on the safaris daily. And you're not limited to 3 nights in the Sabi Sands. You can join us every day of the week for, not eternity, but for the foreseeable future. And that way we can make the most of unique sightings and try and share these unique things with you, as opposed to trying to tick off boxes that is often the case when guiding guests who are only in a venue for 3 or 4 days. I think Andrew had an attempt at the Arathusa signboard there, which you may have got a glimpse of. And this is the main Arathusa driveway that leads us into their camp, and also the quickest route to the waterhole. The sun has just poked out again and it's cast a beautiful golden light over us. It really is a magical afternoon out in the low veldt of South Africa. Now, as I drive through this area, we're going to be keeping our eyes peeled for any sign of Sindile and his mother shadow, 2 leopards that we've seen quite frequently over the last few weeks, although over the last few days we haven't been so lucky. They could be anywhere here though, and there have been tracks of them in this general area of Arathusa. You'll notice a lot of skeletons of dead trees around us, and this is thanks to some of the work done by our exterior decorators, the elephants, who rip the bark off these trees, thus killing them, but providing us with some beautiful, beautiful structures, and also very useful homes for some of the small animals that can then bore cavities into the trees and have a home within them. Now, we are taking a bit of a gamble coming here because we have been experiencing some signal difficulties over the last few days on Arathusa. So if things start getting a bit shaky, we apologize for that. I haven't heard anything too interesting on this Game Drive channel yet. But then again, multitasking is not one of my strengths, and while I'm talking I've got constant chattering going on in my ear, and I'm focusing on talking to you and not listening to the people too much. So I could have missed something, but usually if there is anything exciting, you can tell by the tone in the people's voices of so we can potentially get some changes in frequency from the guides and their voices. Now I'm not sure what these white poles are here for. This is a new addition to the Arethusa airstrip. Maybe a pilot lost his way. Well done, Andrew. Those were some crowned lapwings that were flying over, and here comes one more. They were also the birds that you can hear calling. And here comes another one if you want to have a crack at it, Andrew. It's coming straight at us. Oh, there we go. Well done. Very good. One of our viewers all the way in Dallas, called Janet, has been on safari to South Africa before, and she wasn't too far away from us, just in the Timbabati, which is probably about 60 miles as the crow flies from us, and quite similar vegetation to what we have here. And when she was getting driven around by her guide there was a rifle on the front of his vehicle, and she's wondering if that is common practice or if it is just in that area. At most lodges that you go to within South Africa, your guide will have a rifle on his vehicle. It's mainly for getting off the vehicle and tracking, and the likelihood of you needing to use a rifle whilst on the vehicle is very, very slim. So that's simply there for a precaution if the guide or the tracker needs to get off and search for any animals. And the reason why you need it for when you're walking on foot is that it's a lot more dangerous than being on the vehicle, and the very same animals that will tolerate us just meters from them in a vehicle will act very differently if we were that close to them on foot. So that is often the case, and it's also useful to have because if you do find a good possible approach to encounter an elephant bull or a rhinoceros, or just go for a short walk through a beautiful area with your guests, you have your rifle there ready to protect them in case of an emergency. So it is useful to carry around. For us though, it's not really critical because the only people that we're walking around with are ourselves, and I know James, Brent and myself are all happy to walk alone or with other guides like James or Brent. All three of us would happily walk together without a rifle. However, if you do have guests with you or people who are not bush savvy, it is highly recommendable to carry a rifle just in case something goes wrong. You do have that safety and security ready for you. Well, we have finally got to the Arethusa waterhole, and let's see where these waterbuck are doing their business. Aha! I think I can see them. They're quite far across to our right. So we're going to have to move across onto that side of the waterhole. Isn't this a beautiful, beautiful, big expanse of water? We're not going to delay there, and once we get into position on the other side, then we can stop and enjoy the scenery. But considering how long we've been taking to get here, with the goal of seeing these waterbuck, let's try and achieve that. So, over on our right I can see one of the waterbucks, and then further to the right of that individual there's two more that I can see. But they all appear to be quite relaxed with one another at the moment. Well, Andrew took a little bit long to level off the camera there because we've got some replacement heads in and they don't have any spirit levels on them, so he does have a very valid excuse. And you'll notice it's not only the waterbuck here, but also some of our cousins, the vervet monkey. And we don't get to see them very often, and when we do, it's very seldom out in the open and on the ground. So this is a beautiful scene. Some impala, some humans on the deck that Andrew's trying to avoid, but they jumped out of the corner of the screen. And the waterbuck, who all appear somewhat relaxed with one another. They also look like young waterbuck, which means that the argument that they were having was possibly practice for a future more serious bout. Although the two over to the left and this individual here that Andrew's zooming in on is a big mature waterbuck. And he could certainly be competing for real for some ladies, and so could the one on the right of the screen. You can't see it very clearly. He's looking anxiously at the other individual, maybe planning a second attack. And as he faces away from us, you'll notice that very distinctive white circle on its bottom, a characteristic trademark of the waterbuck. Well, the Arethusa camp are busy doing some renovations, and that's the noise that you can hear. All work gets done when the guests are out of camp, but we are so close to the camp that those are the noises you can hear. And due to the fact that we don't want to listen to a construction site and the fact that the waterbuck are not fighting, I think we shall continue. Beautiful scene though nonetheless, and glad we rushed over here. Certainly worth investigating the opportunity. And I'm just going to ask Andrew to swivel across 180. Sorry Andrew, I'm taking you on a bit of a run around this afternoon, but there really is a beautiful view of the sun beginning to set. That strange noise you may have heard in the background, other than the construction, was a hippopotamus. Was my little impersonation. You could get very well confused because it is one of my best animal impersonations, I think. The only one that I'm proud of. So I'll do it again. Beautiful. Look at that. But let's carry on, and maybe we can find a picturesque spot where there's more animal noise and less human noise. What I do want to do though, it's a bit of a gamble, is if you look over my right shoulder, you will see two very distinctive heart-shaped tracks Now if I blur out that one because I've stepped on top of one another, you can see it is very, very heart-shaped, and those are the footprints of the waterbuck we've just been looking at. And they've not only got heart-shaped footprints, but also a heart-shaped nostril to look out for when we're closer by to them. So I think the plan now for Andrew and myself is to switch this vehicle out of Ferrari mode and back into stealth mode and try our best to try and work out where young Shadow and Sindile, young Sindile and his mother Shadow are hiding at the moment. And in the meantime, we will send you back to Brent for an update on his leopard tracking.
Welcome back, everyone. We're still following up on these leopard tracks. They came somewhere into this block to the north of us here, so we're checking along Central Road very carefully and hoping to see if they popped out. We had a look while we walked, as I walked and looked at some of the big trees. I was hoping to find a tree climbing impala, but no such luck. So we'll keep checking, and remember, let's see who got it right, whether it was a young male or an adult male leopard. There were nice clear tracks there. And we'll have a little stop in before then with the hawk eagle nest, see if the parents are around, or maybe we can see the movement of a chick possibly. I think they might still have eggs. I'm not sure whether it's hatched yet. Can't see any of the adult birds. And we'll have a quick look at that African hawk eagle's nest and see if there's been any updates or new additions to the Nkuhuma family. Whoa. How's that? A little bit forward. Good. So there we go. There's the African hawk eagle nest. So have a look with my binoculars, see if I see any slight movement popping over. Very untidy nest, like most big raptors. It's just a pile of sticks. The inside will be a little bit nicer, and there'll be quite a few feathers lining it. So no movement just yet, so possibly still eggs, and I was hoping now that it's getting a bit later that we might see the adults around the nest, but they're not. They may be still out hunting. In the early mornings we are seeing them quite regularly around the nest, but well done to Pretty Nightmare, Margaret and Gilly, who were correct on that tracking quiz. It was a young male leopard, and the way I was able to tell is that the tracks, even though they are getting quite big, Still a little bit smaller than, say, Tingana or Mvula, the two dominant male leopards in this area. So, very interesting. I wonder who it could be. Could it be one of the boys we've been missing so much? Or could it be a new male leopard that's dispersing in this area? So, fascinating, and hopefully we do happen to find tracks or even the animal a little bit later, or even on tomorrow's sunrise safari. But we're going to move as the sun is breaking through slightly and give you a nice view of that. I'm going to turn around for Brian. Isn't that an absolutely stunning sight? Another tough day in the office for Brian and myself. I don't know how we do it every day. But Joan in England, who is one of the people who got the flycatcher question correct. Well done, Joan. She missed that if she got it correct or not. And it was a grey tit flycatcher. Jones also just let us know she's got 127 species on her safari list so far. So well done, Joan. Hopefully in the upcoming weeks we can help you add to that list. I think the record list for a viewer on the live drives is around 150. So you're getting there quite quickly, Joan. So well done. Only I would hit the same hole twice, once on the way in and once on the way out. So, for a feathered creature, we actually do show you quite often, but they are so beautiful. Those striking colors. You can see that big, robust bill of a crested barbet, and off he disappears. But that was a beautiful little cameo appearance by that crested barbet. So, lovely. I know that's probably a bird most of you have on our lists. They just come up so wonderfully in camera. And all those multiple colors just look exquisite. And the same barbet has done it again. Landed right next to us. And there we can have a bit of a longer look at those colors. And off he goes again. It's keeping you on your toes, Brian. So unfortunately, I think that leopard is somewhere still in this block to the northwest of us. There are no tracks coming out. So we're going to start meandering towards those lazy lines. And we should get there a little bit later. Hopefully, we might have some hyenas that are getting mobile now that it's a bit cooler, and start possibly giving those lions a bit of trouble. I personally think, it's probably going to happen later. But it's always worth having a check. yeah, so excuse me for a second while I pop my jacket on. It's getting a bit nippy. And who said men can't multitask? I managed to drive, not have an accident, and put my jersey on. So we've got following up on those leopard tracks we've been following. But a question from Virginia on Twitter, who would like to know how different is a female leopard track from a male leopard track. I'm trying to think of the best way to show you guys, and I think it's going to have to be in the sand. And me, I like getting dirty, so it's always better if I get to play in the sand. Unfortunately here, I've got a really big sand pit. Now let's think, how am I going to draw a leopard track? Because I'm not quite the artist that the thumb is, but let's figure this out. We good here? Mm-hmm. So, a male leopard track, and this is a very badly drawn male leopard track, I warn you. Let's do one facing you. Oh, very bad. That's looking way more like a lioness than a leopard. Let's start again. Maybe I should use a stick. Or a piece of grass. This is terrible.
It's not too bad.
It's not too bad. Oh, this toe's a bit wrong. Actually, that's probably the best way to make the toes. So, another one there. So, no, that is terrible. Smaller finger. Okay, well, we're just going to have to live with my bad art. So this would probably be a young male track, and this would actually sort of look like that while we were following it. And that's actually turned into quite a big male track with my fat fingers. But a female track is generally, and let's just take a track we see often, which is Karula, the Queen of Djuma. She has got the most exquisite tiny little tracks. So I mean, next to the male leopard track, Karula's toes aren't that big, but you can see the base size. She's probably is one of the smaller leopard tracks I've ever seen for an adult female, and she's probably less than half the size of an Mvula. And even now, like the young males about Quarantine and Nkuhuma's age, their tracks are getting harder to distinguish between an adult male, and they're sort of getting quite big now, but they are still slightly smaller. So maybe just a little bit smaller. I've got a plan to show you the difference between the leopard tracks, but unfortunately it's a big secret and it's a plan in progress, so you're going to have to wait a little bit till I get to show you that. But I hope that gives you some idea. The size is completely different, and that's the easiest way to tell. Occasionally, though, you get females that are absolute beasts. We used to see a female way down south in the Sabi Sands that was called the Sunset Bend female, and many a guide and many a tracker made the mistake of calling her tracks male tracks. She wasn't particularly, she was a big female leopard, but she wasn't massive. She just had the largest feet I've ever seen on a female leopard. Unfortunately, as I said, my artistic skills leave a bit lacking. I need to practice a bit more, but hopefully that gives you guys a better idea on how we judge the difference between male and female tracks. And off we go again. Oh, I think we're going to get to a nice spot to just watch the sun disappear. So we're just going to watch the sun disappear through that low bank of cloud quickly, because I don't think we get another chance to see it. But what a stunning view. And we've got a cheeky comment from Connie on Twitter saying, look how primal men learn to use tools. Guys, we're just going to keep quiet for a little bit and just enjoy this exquisite African sunset. So I've found another little friend while we were keeping quiet. I just saw him hopping around, and we have had one of these guys before. This is a different species. I'm not sure which one, but it is another little jumping spider. Here he goes. Don't run away, don't run away. We want to have a good look at you. But very cute. And we often, because we go bundu bashing, we often have little visitors that make our vehicles their home, and I'm particularly fond of jumping spiders, especially since when the flies were really bad, we had one that nearly killed a fly right on the dashboard in front of us, and the flies that buzz around our face. I'm very happy to have any little creature that is happy to eat the flies for me living in the jigger. And we can see he's a jumping spider. Oh no, he doesn't want to jump today. Look, there we go. And he's going to go. He's probably going to go bungee off the edge. Jump! There we go. Bungee spider. And he'll probably lower himself down to a spot where he finds he can make a little nest. There he goes. Isn't that absolutely wonderful? Even the tiniest things out here are incredible to watch. So we heard a few birds there while we were watching the sunset. I heard, I think, 1, 2, 3, 5 species. You hear that with the sort of loudest one. Oh my, that call is terrible. That is a magpie shrike. And there we hear a crested francolin in the distance. And then I heard that that sort of oxpeckers coming home to roost. What other birds? No, I think maybe it was 4. I'm trying to remember what the last one I heard was. But we can hear the francolin going berserk.
Turtle dove?
There we go. Well done, Brian. It was a Cape turtle dove saying Cape turtle, Cape turtle. But I think as the sun dips below the horizon, we're going to start making our way back towards those lines and see if there's been any update around there. So just to let you know what young Scottish is up to, he's feeling lucky. He's got tracks of 2 leopards that he's quite confident could be Shadow and Sindile. So he's hot on the trail. So we're going to give him some space so he can track and possibly find those leopards. And we're going to go back towards the sleeping lions. So we're getting quite close to the area where the top of the marula. I'm not sure which one it is. Very difficult in this light. There we go, I got him. Brian's gonna, there we go, a lovely little raptor, a little acipter, a predatory bird. Unfortunately, he is hiding behind there, but you can see he's got a red feet, and that is one of the giveaways on his ID. And let's see who can possibly identify this gorgeous little raptor. And you can send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. I might try and move a little bit. It is possible he might, oopsie, there go my binoculars, fly. I'm just going to try to turn to the side so you can see his face. I think you might get a gap through there for the head fly. You got it? Put forward. There you go. So he's just trying to find Brian a gap so he could show you its face. Unfortunately, not the best light to spot a little raptor in, but there we go. You can see a very distinct red bill as well, which is another distinguishing feature. Very pretty, sort of, I wouldn't go, not gunmetal grey, it's sort of light grey. So you will have, if the other little birds spot them, especially the smaller birds, they will start making quite the ruckus. They don't like those little guys around. They are actually very good hunters of birds. And out of the family, they are probably one of the less obtrusive, so there's a whole family of them, and they're probably the hardest of them to see, although they are quite common and we do see them quite regularly. We only get one of them here. The others, see, I'm trying to be very cryptic because I often give away the answers accidentally when I start yabbering on about what we're saying. So they're a little bit more shy and retiring, and you can see the way he's landed. The other species of them will very much land out in very big open trees and things like that. So they are more visible. We don't get that, the others here, but a little clue to help you ID. How many stations with Impala? Copy, I would like to be the third. Okay, so we are approaching that area, as I started saying, we're approaching that area where the lions are, and we're going to go in very slowly. I'm going to keep looking to see if maybe any of the hyena have arrived. Not gonna fly. So he hasn't flown yet. We've had a few answers, but unfortunately they are not correct. We had a gabar goshawk and a harrier hawk, which are both incorrect. So Brian's just struggling. It is a very strange angle. We're trying to get the focus there now in a second. There we go. Oops. It's a very difficult angle. It's right at the edge of the tripod's range, or the head's range. So Brian's doing a stellar job just trying to get it there. So you see very distinct barring, very fine barring on the chest, mostly grey, and you see those very distinct bars on the other underside of the tail. He's being very, very cooperative. Normally they don't sit around for this long and give us this chance to view them this nicely. So, we had a few other answers in that weren't correct, but Bren has got it spot on. It is a dark chanting goshawk. Doing a little bit of preening. Such a beautiful little guy, and being so patient with us, giving us a couple of nice views. And one of the ways to remember, and I'm going to show you in the book now where we can see a little bit more detail. Obviously sometimes the pictures aren't quite what the birds are like, so it's a little bit lighter than that, and you'll see there's no real contrast between the back and the wing, but the diagnostic is the red face, or the red beak, and the red eye, and the red legs. Juveniles can be quite difficult, as you can see, but they're very, very streaky, sometimes looking a little bit like a juvenile honey buzzard as well. The gabar goshawk is quite a bit smaller. There's the gabar. It does have the red, but on both the legs and the feet, but as he flew in there, one of the very distinguishing features of a gabar goshawk when it's flying, if you have a look, there's that white rump, whereas this guy does not have the white rump. Oh, quickly, he's about to be attacked. Oh, sorry, we just missed it. As I heard it, a long-tailed, magpie shrike came in and chased him off his perch, and I said that the other birds really don't like having them around. So there we go, a very proud looking long-tailed shrike. Okay, as we are, I keep trying to start saying, we are in the area where the lines are, and we're going to come in very slowly, and from this distance here we're going to keep our eyes open to see if any of the hyena might possibly be around, sniffing around, seeing if there are any opportunities to take advantage of. There are some other game drives there who have been waiting there for a while already. Have been listening. There haven't been any hyena, but what I saw this morning is the hyena was often quite far away, sort of at this distance often from the kill, and we can show you where the kill is. If you have a look through the distance there, you'll see the game drive vehicles. So The hyena was so quite a distance away, and occasionally, oh, so speaking of hyenas and lions, Wendy would like to know how far the hyena den is from the lion kill, and I would guess it's about, as the crow flies in a straight line, no more than 2 kilometers at the most. Then we have a white-backed vulture. So since we've left, some vultures have definitely spotted this. I can see that one there sitting on top of the dead tree. There's another one a bit closer. We'll show you when we get closer. And you often see vultures sitting on dead trees, and there's a very good reason for this, and I'm wondering if any of you guys can figure it out. Why, as a vulture, would it make more sense for you to sit in a dead tree than in a live tree? And you can send your answers to questions at wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Okay, now let's see if we can actually get a little bit close to the lions before we spot something interesting to stop it again. So having these vultures here, other vultures, as they get flying tomorrow, will actually spot them, and that'll cause them to come land in this area. So there's another one up there. We're going to try sneak around a bit closer. So we're stalking a vulture, guys. It looks to be a white-backed vulture. And off it goes. I'm not sure what got it. Oh, that's what gave it a fright. Actually, there's some hooded vultures flying around behind and startled the white-backed vulture. The hooded vultures in that marilla tree there in the distance. So that startled that white-backed vulture. There's not much happening at the lions. Nothing's feeding. So we're going to go try to get those hooded vultures so you can see what I was talking about earlier with their beaks after we've had a good look at a big vulture like a white-backed vulture. Let me just go quickly try see if we can get a closer view of the hooded vultures. It looks like all the lions are sleeping, but we will come back in a few moments. Well, there's actually quite a few vultures, so those first 2 hooded vultures we saw flying earlier have obviously sparked a little bit of a vulture landing spree, and there's actually about 4 or 5 whitebacks down in a dead tree there. A little bit difficult to see. Well done to Deborah, Virginia, and Leslie, who got the answer to the vultures correct. There were a lot of you, but those are the first 3. because they are such big birds, it makes much more sense to land in a dead tree. If they were to land in a branch tree or a live tree, they would often get caught and find it quite difficult to take off. But now we've caught up with those two hooded vultures that startled the white-backed one. And you can see they're a lot more slightly built, and when they turn, you can see how thin their beaks are in comparison to that heavy set beak of the white-backed vulture. So guys, the lions weren't doing anything, but we are going to go back there and have a look at what's happening. But in the meantime, we're going to cross across to Scotty, who's going to let you know what he's been up to on Arathusa. And when you come back, we will be with the lions, whether they be sleeping or feeding, only time will tell.
Welcome back, everyone, and we were really excited. I still am a little bit, but earlier on we came across leopard tracks heading in two directions. It was on very hard ground and the sun had already set, so I didn't have much light to work with. But what we could establish and fairly safely assume is that because the leopard tracks were heading in one direction and then straight back for quite some distance on that same pathway, means that it could very well be Shadow, who would have made a kill, made a direct fastest trip back to her cub Sindile to collect him from wherever she left him, and then walk back on that same path back to her kill, taking him there with her. Now, we were following the tracks up until we couldn't see them any longer, and it's somewhere in this area that I'm fairly certain they are hiding. So we are creeping around, hoping that we may get lucky, but I am almost certain that something has happened here. If she had have not been successful and gone to collect the cub to move into a different area where she could then leave him and then begin to or at least continue to hunt, she in all likelihood wouldn't have gone on the same pathway back to the area where she's just come from. So that is the kind of science behind how we've pieced together the tracks in the sand, but to no avail. It would have been great with half an hour more sunlight, but my contacts with the sun gods I have lost, and therefore we could not get it to stay up any longer than it did. But what I may do is continue down this road. Basically they were off down to our left, the last tracks that we had, but they were moving in this general direction. I did take a short walk around where we lost the tracks, but didn't have any luck there. So what we shall now do is turn around and go back to the last point where we had both sets of tracks heading up and down. Let's just go a little bit further. Just a very comfortable marula tree up ahead, perfect to hoist a kill into. Now, we don't know Shadow very well. We haven't seen her on a huge amount of occasions, and therefore haven't got to understand whether she is prone to hoisting her kills in trees or not. The first time I actually saw her and Sindile, probably in February last year, she did in fact hoist the kill. It was a young impala that she hoisted up into a knobthorn tree. Sorry, this year. So he was probably only around 5 or 6 months old then. But the last kill that we saw her make was an adult male impala. We didn't see her make it, let me just clear that up, but we were at least lucky enough to see her and Sindile at that freshly made kill. But she didn't hoist that up into a tree. Now it's very difficult for a female leopard to hoist a fully grown male impala up a tree. It can be done, but she didn't, and it got stolen by a hyena that very same evening. They thankfully had managed to feed on a small amount of the carcass, so at least they got a little bit of a share in it, but the hyena got the majority. Wow. It sounds like you are up on some nice elevated ground with Brent and got some stunning views of the sunsets. And I believe you also got a show of Brent's artistic capabilities drawing in the sand. I would have loved to see that, and I will certainly be watching those highlights. Now, Brent and James have been collecting some leopard scat or dung for a research project that's being done. I have yet to find a suitable sample to collect. So MJ, no, I have not collected any scat of either Sindile or his mother Shadow. But I'm sure there will be a time in the next few days where we can. I wasn't here for the actual meeting when the researchers came in to tell Brent and James more about it, but basically it's important to actually know as best as you can which leopard the dung was actually from, and also as much information on that leopard that you can. So just to pick up random leopard dung I don't think would be of any major use to the researchers, but I stand to be corrected, and therefore you do need to try and almost see which leopard it was dropping off its parcel for us to then collect. Now, Leslie in California would like to know, so I just saw a diker darting off into the bush and I didn't know quite what it was in this low light. Evening, Leslie, and I hope all is well in California. Now, Leslie is asking, and actually also telling us, that leopards are often named after certain areas that they may grow up in or spend time in, and that's certainly correct, Leslie. And she would like to know what is the origin of the quarantine male leopard's name. And there's a large open clearings. It's beautiful, really, really beautiful marula grove on a crest right outside the final control room and the house that we stay in at Djuma. And that area was used as a quarantine area when animals were being reintroduced into the Sabi Sands. It was actually fenced in and not always open to the Kruger National Park, and during those stages the landowners would add animals into the Sabi Sands. It was also used for hunting, so that is why the area was possibly restocked with game and certain species were brought in, and they were kept in a quarantine area in those clearings to help them acclimatize to the area. So it wasn't because of disease so much, but more of acclimatization, you could say, for new animals arriving into the Sabi Sands. That was a thing of the past, though, many, many years ago, but the name still holds. It doesn't strictly have to be, though, Leslie, and I'll let everyone know this, that it doesn't have to be named after any specific area, and it could depend on the area where the leopard is. I'm told that here on Arathusa, Sindile, who we have named as WildEarth, but will officially be named by the Arathusa guides, I'm fairly certain the name will be chosen by Sean, one of the guides that you may have heard us speaking about, because he was the first person to find Shadow and Sindile. So he gets to decide what name it should get when it does come of age. And that will be when his mother decides to start kicking him out of the house and making him fend for himself, which could happen within the next 6 months. So everyone should be ready for a name change for Sindile. It's not going to stay. Okay, well, Brent has been lost for the last 10 minutes, but he has finally found the lion again. So go and join him and enjoy.
So it seems like we've timed our return to the lions perfectly. As you can see, they've actually moved the carcass, and there's quite a few of them feeding. So good times. Maybe we might get some of that aggression. I heard a little bit of growling, but nothing too serious. So we have got back here just in time. It's dark enough, and if there are any hyenas around, they possibly might feel a little bit braver as it gets darker to come in here. I still think they're probably not ready to challenge, especially not if there's only 2 or 3 or even 4 of them. I think they're going to need at least 10 hyenas to challenge the pride on this carcass. There we go, you can see he's going to try. Looks like he was going to try roll it over or pull it. It's actually getting stuck against the fallen down tree. You can see it's unbelievable how strong a male lion is. See her using her claws to just try to get into a spot where the meat is. And now the other lioness is trying to pull it away, but is not succeeding. So we can see there's a little bit of aggression there as the sub-adult tries to sneak in. And even though they are so full, they can still sometimes get very aggressive with each other. So, while we've got the live camera rolling on these lions feasting on a buffalo, and it is sometimes a little bit difficult to believe that you guys are joining us on a live African safari, and we're watching all of this unfold live. And we've got, looks like eating some of that congealed blood there on the ground. So as I was saying, we are live, and we do have those live dam cameras as well. And Gail is asking, how far are these lions from the Nkuhuma Dam cam? And they are quite far. As the crow flies, maybe 3 kilometers or so. Doesn't look like she's that hungry. She's sort of poking at it rather than eating it. So for those of you who might have signed in a little bit late, or a new viewer and you're just joining us, as we're saying, we are sitting alive next to lions devouring a buffalo. And Chris in Io would like to know, how long will these lions stay at this carcass? And it completely depends. I guess another 2 full days. So tonight, a full day tomorrow, tomorrow night, and then possibly move off sometime during the 3rd day if they don't finish during the night. That is only, of course, if they're not harassed by a large group of hyenas or possibly male lions that come in. And that would obviously make the carcass disappear quite a bit faster. The main part of the carcass that's still intact is the front end, the chest, the shoulders, and the brisket. But I'm quite sure they'll make quite a decent dent in it tonight.
Hear the bones cracking and everything.
We might see a little of that aggression now, as these 2 sub-adult females try to sneak into the good spots. You see how the one who's lying down, she's laid down and she sort of sneaks, and she might even crawl a little bit forward, barely moving to try to get closer to a spot where she can feed. And you watch her nose. See how she's just trying to sneak in there. She's trying to get in there without getting reprimanded by the female. But she is so full, and she probably could use a little bit of a break from eating. But lions are true gluttons when they need to be. You notice how huge these lions' bellies are at the moment, and Jeremy Oliver is wondering, is this not possible? Could they not possibly be a little bit vulnerable in this state? Jeremy, these animals are still able to go from this sort of flat, sleeping, flatulent lion up to that sort of killer mode. And if an animal happened to stumble into them, they would probably try catch it. Also, if they had to defend it against another pride of female lions or hyenas, they would definitely do that. They sometimes can look incredibly lazy, especially when they're lying on their back with all 4 legs in the air, but they still can switch into that mode, and they are still incredibly fast and powerful. Sometimes, however, when they are in these situations, they might give up a carcass because they are so full, and they might not feel it necessary to defend it because they've had such a good meal. But I think with a young male lion here, even if the hyenas came, they would definitely try defend the carcass. So as you can see, it's a relatively peaceful lion carcass at the moment, and that's because it is such a big carcass and there is enough meat for all of them. Ginny's got a question saying, if there were young cubs, would the mothers steal a piece of meat just for those cubs? Ginny, unfortunately not. They would get stuck in, the cubs would often get smacked and told to get out of the way while they are feeding. Look, she's got that. It actually looks like it might be a piece of the lung. Sorry, my head's in the way, and she's popped her head. She's a bit too close. Let me see if I can just maneuver a centimeter to see if you guys can see that. How close is that vehicle behind us? You're good. I'm afraid there's a tree right next to me, so that's about the best I'm going to be able to do. So what I thought was congealed blood could actually be the leftovers of an internal organ, possibly the lungs, which is what it could be. I can't really see. It's obviously covered in a lot of dirt and grime and it's been in the dust. What I thought was a pool of congealed blood. Oh no, the pool of congealed blood's still there. Okay, so it is something else. Possibly the lungs, but it's very difficult to see while it's all dirty like that. Brian, why don't you just jump off there, take my knife and go cut me a piece?
Sure, one sec.
So if we come out wide, look at that sky behind the lions. Not many better ways to spend a sunset than next to a pride of lions feasting on a buffalo. Your quintessential African sunset with your quintessential African scene. I think hyenas have arrived. Two of the lionesses have suddenly lifted up their heads quite quickly and are staring off into the distance. Unfortunately, and there we go, here comes the next one. I think possibly hyenas have just arrived. This one lioness looks like she's going to go. How are we there? We good? So the one lioness is definitely showing some serious interest in something. I can't see what yet. I can see that looking into that direction. I think there is possibly a hyena here again. But I think they might be doing what they did. And you see this lioness here, she immediately did the exact same thing. They immediately started scent marking as soon as the hyena was around this morning. So the other vehicle spotted the hyena. It looks like the hyena is moving off. So we've got a little bit of a surprise for you. We're gonna cross across to Scotty, who's got a really, really wonderful, very well camouflaged surprise for you, and we'll be back with you a little later.
Well, we got lucky and we found what we were looking for. Here's the kill. It's a male impala. And not far off is the leopard. Look at that. Just in the nick of time, just before the end of broadcast. That looks like possibly Sindile, the young male cub that we can see. But they haven't faced us, and they do look quite similar, the mother and the cub. They're very similar size. But can you believe how lucky we are? We actually drove past them on the same road when you were with us a little bit earlier. But now driving back with the spotlight, I got a glisten of eyes off in the thick bush. And what helped me to know that it was a predator is that the eyes were spaced quite far apart. The eyes of a lot of the antelope will be closer together, even though they are on the side of their head. Antelope have got very narrow heads compared to predators. And we came into the bush for a closer look, and this is what we found. It looks like they fed on a fair portion of this carcass, but that I'm guessing I'm attributing to hunger as opposed to time spent here. And I'm fairly certain she made this kill sometime between game drives, so during the course of the day, and then went to go and collect them again during the course of the day, so they've only been here this afternoon. But if they're both very hungry, they could have certainly consumed as much as we can see. And they've consumed the easy bits. The rump, you can see, has been consumed partially, and also the rib cage, and it's very similar behavior to what we saw when they were feeding on the last male impala kill that they made about a week ago. Well, let me clarify, that's shadow made. Well, wouldn't it be wonderful to know where the other leopard is? It is very thick here, but I think I have just seen it, so I'm just going to take the spotlights off that leopard, Andrew, for a second, and shine it across here where I can see some other spots. It's going to be very difficult, but let me try and find a gap. And that, I don't know if Andrew has a gap there. Do you, Andrew? No. Let me move forward a meter or two. That looks like shadow there. That should probably be. You can't really see her face, but you can see her body. Now, because they're not feeding now, and because it is towards the end of the broadcast, I don't want to hang around you and attract any attention to them with the spotlights. So let's leave them and come back in the morning, and hopefully Shadow would have hoisted the kill up into a tree. But haven't we got lucky, and so awesome that we managed to find these leopards. Like I said earlier, I was convinced that they had made a kill. The fact that tracks were going up and down on the same pathway led us to believe that this is what happened, and they made a kill, and then Shadow went to collect Sindile and then come back with him so that he could enjoy his mother's hard-won meal. Now, what an end to another wonderful day here on Arathusa and Djuma. It's so good to have all of you with us on this adventure, and I cannot stress that enough. It wouldn't be the same if it was just Andrew and myself driving around here without your questions, contributions and thoughts. So thank you for joining, and thanks to Andrew on camera, as well as Nikki for directing the show, and Tara for lending her a hand. It's been another great day, and look forward to another one with you all tomorrow. Back to Brent with the Lions.
Welcome back, guys. Wasn't that fantastic that Scott managed to find Shadow and Sindile, and it looks like they're also going to eat well tonight. Hopefully the hyenas don't rob them of that. But Junior's been tugging on the carcass, and the rest of the pride have actually joined in. There's only one female, I think, who's not feeding at the moment. So what a way to end the Sunset Safari. To any new viewers, really, thanks very much for joining us. To all our regulars, always wonderful to have you, and thanks again for all the questions. And we will definitely be seeing you bright and early on the Sunrise Safari, so please do join us. We will be following up on two of our favorite animals, the lions and the leopards, who each have a kill at the moment. So we will be checking in the morning. So for the last few seconds, from Brian and myself, a big thank you for joining us, and enjoy the little bit of last time with the Nkuhuma Pride.